Thousands of you left a comment on the last video asking the same thing. You said, "Tell me more about that stove." So I went back. There is a stove in a farmhouse in Holmes County, Ohio that has not been fed since this morning. It burned for 1 hour. 2 small logs. Gone. The fire is out. And that house will stay warm until tomorrow morning without anyone touching it again. I know because I put my hand on the wall of that stove at 10 o'clock at night, 6 hours after the fire died. It was warm. Not hot enough to burn. Warm, like a body. And the family inside was paying nothing, not $1 to any utility company for heat. When I asked the man who built that stove how much it cost him to make, he said $50. $50. And then he told me something I was not ready to hear. He said, "The reason you have never seen one of these is not because they do not work. It is because they work too well. And in 37 states, they are illegal to build." That is what this video is about. A heating system that costs $50, burns 90% less wood than your stove at home, and radiates warmth for up to 24 hours from a single fire that lasts less than 90 minutes. The Amish did not invent it, they inherited it. Their ancestors brought it from Germany over 200 years ago, and they never stopped using it even when the rest of America forgot it existed. The first time I walked into one of these homes near Millersburg, I spent 20 minutes looking for the thermostat. There was no thermostat, there was no furnace, there was no duct. There was a large, warm structure in the center of the house that looked more like a bench than a stove. And every room in that house was the same temperature. Not hot near the fire and cold by the window. The same everywhere. I had never experienced that in my life. But here's where it gets interesting. I dug into the history of this system, and I found something that stopped me cold. Mark Twain, yes. That Mark Twain wrote about this exact stove in 1878 after traveling through Germany. He described it as the best stove ever invented. He wrote that one firing is enough for the day, the cost is next to nothing, and the heat produced is the same all day, instead of too hot and too cold by turns. That was 147 years ago, and most Americans have still never heard of it. Before I explain how this system works and exactly how you can build one, including if you already own a home, I need to tell you what it replaced. Because the only way to understand why this system matters is to understand how badly the thing in your basement is failing you right now. A conventional wood stove, the kind you probably grew up with, burns at about 1,000 degrees inside the firebox. That sounds impressive until you realize what happens next. At 1,000 degrees, the wood does not burn completely. The smoke, the gases, the volatile compounds, they escape up the chimney at 400 to 600 degrees. Every time you look outside and see smoke coming out of a chimney, you are watching heat leave a house. You are watching money float into the sky. The number they print on the box says 75% efficient. That is a laboratory number. In a real home with real wood, opened and closed by a real person, the actual efficiency is closer to 35%. That means 65% of the heat your wood could have given you is going straight up the flue. And that is not the worst part. That incomplete combustion creates creosote, a tar-like buildup inside your chimney that causes house fires. So you are losing most of your heat and creating a fire hazard at the same time. Now, I want you to picture something. You are standing next to your wood stove in January. You have been feeding it logs every 2 hours since dinner. The house is warm near the stove and cold in the bedroom. The chimney is putting out a column of white and gray smoke that you can see from the road. And you are thinking this is just how it works. This is what heating a home with wood looks like. It is not. That is what wasting wood looks like. And the Amish knew a better way 300 years ago. Here is what their stove does differently. The principle is the exact opposite of everything you have been taught about burning wood. Instead of burning slow and continuous, you burn intense and fast. The combustion chamber is shaped like a J or an L. The fire enters horizontally through a feed tube. You lay small sticks in sideways, not stacked up. The wood travels through a horizontal burn tunnel, and then the hot gases rise through an insulated vertical tube called a heat riser. Inside that tube, the temperature reaches 1,800 degrees. At 1,800 degrees, something remarkable happens. the smoke itself catches fire. The gases that would have escaped up a normal chimney, they burn. What comes out the other end is not black smoke. It is water vapor and carbon dioxide. The exhaust temperature leaving this system is between 90 and 100 degrees. Compare that to 400 or 600 degrees from your conventional stove. That entire difference, 300 to 500 degrees, is heat that stayed inside the house instead of leaving through the roof. But that is only half the story. In a normal stove, whatever heat does stay in the house radiates from a metal box. Metal heats fast and cools fast. The moment the fire dies, the heat starts disappearing. This system does something completely different. The hot gases from that combustion chamber do not go straight outside. They travel horizontally through a massive bench made of brick, stone, or cob, a mixture of clay, sand, and straw. That bench absorbs the heat before it can escape, and then it releases it slowly over the next 12 to 24 hours like a battery, a thermal battery. The surface of that bench is never dangerously hot. Children sit on it, animals sleep next to it. It is warm the way a sunlit stone wall is warm on an autumn afternoon, comfortable, constant, safe. The Amish families I visited use the bench like furniture. The kids do homework on it after school. The grandmother reads there in the evening. One man told me he had not turned on a space heater or plugged in an electric blanket in 17 years. He said, "Why would I? The bench is warm when I wake up. It is warm when I go to sleep. It is warm in between. That is heating. And here is the thing that made me feel like a fool." The wood you burn in this system is not the thick split logs you are used to hauling from a woodpile. It is sticks. Thin, dry hardwood about the thickness of your thumb. Fallen branches, garden clippings, scrap wood from the shop. You light it with a match and some newspaper. In 2 to 3 minutes, the heat riser gets hot enough to create what builders call the rocket effect, a roaring updraft that sounds like a jet engine in miniature. You feed it wood for 45 to 90 minutes, then you stop, the fire goes out on its own, and for the next 12 to 24 hours, the bench radiates heat into every corner of the room. Now let me give you the numbers, because numbers are what separate a nice story from a decision you can actually make. Ianto Evans, a Welsh-born builder living in Coquille, Oregon, who documented and popularized the modern version of the system through his work at the Aprovecho Research Center, reported that he went from burning 4 to 5 cords of wood per winter with a conventional stove to about 2/3 of a cord with the rocket mass heater. Same house, same climate, same square footage. That is an 80 to 90% reduction in fuel. To put that in perspective, a cord of wood is a stack 4 feet wide, 4 feet high, and 8 feet long. He went from needing a woodpile the size of a truck to needing a woodpile that fits in a wheelbarrow. Other builders across the country report similar results. Some homeowners in moderate climates say they heat their entire house with fallen branches from their own yard. No chainsaw, no splitting, no buying wood, just picking up sticks the way your grandfather picked up kindling when he was 8 years old. The average American household spends $1,400 to $2,400 a year on heating over a 30-year mortgage. That is $42,000 to $72,000 just to keep your house warm. The system I am describing costs $50 to $100 in materials, a steel barrel, 20 or 30 fire bricks, some clay from the garden, a metal tube for the heat riser, and refractory mortar. That is it. You can build the basic version in a weekend. Let that sink in. $42,000 over 30 years or $50 once. Now, you might be thinking, if this works so well, why has nobody told me about it? And that is where the story takes a turn that made me angry the first time I heard it. This technology is not new. The German version, called the Kachelofen, has been documented for over 1,000 years. During the 15th century, the forests of Central Europe were disappearing. Wood scarcity was a national crisis in Germany and Austria. A specialized profession emerged, craftsmen called Hafnermeister, whose entire job was to build stoves that could heat a house all day with the smallest possible amount of wood. The Kachelofen was their masterpiece. A ceramic stove that burns small, burns hot, burns complete, and then radiates heat for an entire day. These craftsmen were paid like architects. Their stoves were considered national treasures. And the basic principle behind them, that stone stores heat and metal wastes, it goes back even further. Archaeologists have found precursors in the Bronze Age Alps, roughly 2,500 years before Christ. A fire surrounded by stones. The stones absorb the heat. The heat radiates long after the fire is gone. 4,500 years of proven technology. And it was not just Europe. The Chinese developed the Kang, a raised stone platform for sleeping, heated by a fire channel underneath that kept families warm through the night. The Koreans built the Ondol radiant floor, heating through stone channels more than 2,000 years ago. The Romans used the hypocaust, the same concept of channeling hot air beneath stone floors to heat entire buildings. On every continent, independently, across thousands of years, human beings arrived at the same conclusion. Stone stores heat, metal wastes it. A chimney that lets hot air escape is not a feature, it is a design flaw. And yet, here we are, in America, still building houses with metal ductwork and chimneys that throw heat into the sky. The Amish of Ohio and Pennsylvania are of German-Swiss origin. When they emigrated in the 18th and 19th centuries, they brought the Kachelafin with them. And here is the critical difference: they never abandoned it. When the rest of America switched to forced air central heating in the 1950s, the Amish kept building masonry heaters. They did not switch because the old way was better. They knew it. Their grandparents knew it. Their great-grandparents knew it, but the rest of America forgot. And that forgetting was not an accident. In 1950, manufacturers of central heating systems launched the forced air furnace as a symbol of modern American life. Magazine ads showed smiling families in front of chrome-plated vents. The message was clear: if you still had a masonry stove in your house, you were behind, you were old-fashioned, you were poor. The old ways, masonry, heaters, radiant heat, thermal mass, were labeled as primitive, outdated, something your immigrant grandfather used because he did not know any better, and it worked. Within a single generation, an entire country abandoned a heating method that had worked for 1,000 years and replaced it with a system that requires monthly payments until the day you die. The American heating industry today generates over $30 billion a year in revenue. Every house built with forced air heating is a customer for life, buying fuel, replacing filters, servicing equipment, paying monthly bills that never stop. A house with a masonry heater is a customer who might never need anything again. That is not a customer the industry wants. That is a customer the industry needs to prevent. Now, here is the part that should make your blood boil. The modern version of this system, the rocket mass heater, has never been certified by the EPA. Not because it fails emissions tests. It has never been certified because the EPA only certifies products that are manufactured in a factory, identical unit after identical unit. A rocket mass heater is built on site. Everyone is unique. Everyone is custom. There is no factory. There is no assembly line. There is no product to certify. And here is the number that tells you everything. A well-built rocket mass heater produces about 0.12 grams per hour of fine particulate matter. The EPA limit for a certified wood stove is 2.5 grams per hour. The rocket mass heater is 20 times cleaner than what the EPA allows as a maximum for certified stoves, and it is banned not because of what comes out of it, because of a sticker that is not on it. In 37 states, installing a rocket mass heater in your home requires you to own at least 20 contiguous acres. That is not federal law. It is a benchmark that hundreds of counties have adopted into local fire prevention codes. The average American does not own 20 acres. The average American lives on a quarter-acre lot in a suburb. The Amish farmer in Holmes County, Ohio, sitting on 100 acres, can build whatever stove he wants. The American homeowner in Columbus, 75 miles down the road, cannot. Same state, same air, same physics, different rules, and those rules have nothing to do with safety. They have to do with who writes the code. In 2022, a couple in Jackson County, Oregon, built a rocket mass heater in their home on 18.7 acres. They did everything right. They hired an independent lab to test the emissions. The results came back at 0.12 grams per hour, 20 times below the EPA limit, cleaner than a pellet stove, cleaner than a gas furnace in some measurements. The county inspector ordered them to demolish it anyway. The hearing officer's ruling said compliance is determined by listing status, not by emission measurements. It did not matter how clean the stove was. It did not matter that the test results were better than anything on the market. The stove did not have the right paperwork. So it had to go. They tore it down at a cost of $4,200. They were forced to install a $9,800 EPA certified stove that pollutes more than what they had. Think about that. They spent $14,000 to replace a cleaner system with a dirtier one because the cleaner one did not have a piece of paper. To certify a rocket mass heater design, a manufacturer would need to spend over $60,000 in testing, inspections, and annual fees. Initial laboratory testing costs $8,000. Factory inspection runs another $3,000. The EPA emissions test alone can exceed $25,000. And if you change anything about the design, even something minor, you pay for the entire test again. Annual maintenance fees add another $1,500 on top. All of that for a product that costs $50 to build. Only large corporations can afford that certification process. And large corporations have no interest in certifying a product that eliminates the need for their other products. The system is not designed to keep you safe. It is designed to keep you buying. Now, if you already own a house and you are thinking, this only applies to people building from scratch, stay with me. Because this next part is specifically for you. I hear this every single time. I live in a house built in 1972. I have a basement. I have existing ductwork. What am I supposed to do? Tear out my walls? No, you do not tear out anything. There are 3 ways to bring this technology into a home you already own. The first option is the outbuilding. Build a rocket mass heater in a shed, a garage, or a workshop attached to your house. Use the heat it generates to warm water or air and pipe that heat into your main living space. In most jurisdictions, outbuildings have less restrictive codes than the house itself. You are not modifying your home. You are heating a shed that happens to share a wall with your kitchen. I know a man in rural Tennessee who heats his entire 1,500 square foot house this way. The stove is in his workshop, 12 feet from his back door. A simple water loop carries the heat inside. His winter heating bill last year was 0. His workshop is warm too. He calls it his 2-for-1. The second option is a traditional masonry heater, the Katchaloffen style, without the rocket element. These are exempt from EPA certification in most states if they weigh more than 1,800 pounds. That is the mass exemption written into the Federal Register in 2014. If the unit is heavy enough, the EPA considers it a masonry heater rather than a wood stove, and certification requirements do not apply. A traditional masonry heater installed by a professional costs between $3,000 and $8,000. Compare that to $42,000 in heating bills over 30 years, and the math is not even close. You will pay it off in 2 winters and then never write a check for heat again. The third option, and I want to be clear, this is not legal advice, is what thousands of people across this country are already doing quietly. In rural areas without frequent code enforcement, many homeowners build rocket mass heaters in their garage or basement without asking permission. The emissions are so low that there is virtually nothing to detect. No visible smoke, no smell, no complaints from neighbors because there is nothing to complain about. I have read hundreds of posts in permaculture forums from people in 30 different states who have been heating this way for 5, 10, 15 years. They are not hiding. They just stopped asking for permission to do something their great-grandparents did without a second thought. Now, before I get to the most important part of this video, the part that I spent weeks tracking down, I want to mention something. After the last video, hundreds of you asked where you could find all of these Amish methods in one place. So I put together a complete guide. It is called The Amish Home System: How to Cut Every Household Bill to Zero Using Methods That Were Legal Before 1950. Step-by-step instructions for any home already built, no permits, no contractors, No new construction required. The link is in the description below this video. If what I have shared so far has changed the way you think about your home, that guide will change the way you run it. Now, the technique I have been saving for last. I found this buried in the testing records of the Aproveccio Research Center in Oregon, the same institute where Ianto Evans developed the original rocket stove in the 1970s. Most people who build a rocket mass heater make the bench, the thermal mass, out of cob or standard brick. That works. It works well. But what the Aproveccio data showed, and what almost nobody talks about, is that the internal channel geometry matters more than the material. Here is what I mean. Most builders run a single straight pipe through the bench. The hot gases travel in a line, give up some heat, and exit. Simple, effective. But Aproveccio tested a configuration where the internal flue makes two full reversals inside the bench like a snake going back and forth. The gases travel 3 times the distance before reaching the exhaust. And the exit temperature dropped from 90 degrees to barely above ambient, meaning nearly 100% of the available heat was captured by the mass. The difference was not a small improvement. It was the difference between a bench that stays warm for 12 hours and one that stays warm for 24. And the change costs nothing, $0 additional dollars. You are using the same pipe, the same materials, you just route it differently inside the bench. The total additional labor is maybe 2 hours. You make 2 extra bends, you add 2 extra feet of horizontal run, and you double the storage time of your thermal battery. That is the kind of detail that separates a good system from a great one. And it is the kind of detail that never shows up in the quick how-to videos people slap together online. This is the same principle the Finnish used in their contraflow masonry heaters for centuries. The smoke path winds back and forth through the masonry, giving up heat at every turn. The Amish Kakelhofen uses a similar approach, internal baffles that force the gases through a labyrinth before they exit. What Aproveccio proved is that you can apply the same logic to a $50 rocket mass heater built with garden clay and a salvage barrel. Nobody needs to spend $10,000 on a Finnish mason. The physics is the same. Route the gases, extend the path, capture the heat. The Amish man I visited in Holmes County, the one who built his stove for $50, he already knew this. He did not read the Aproveccio data. He did not need to. His grandfather taught him. And his grandfather's grandfather brought that knowledge from Germany 200 years ago. The research center just confirmed what his family had known for generations, and that is the part that keeps me up at night. This knowledge exists. It has always existed. It survived the Industrial Revolution. It survived the marketing campaigns of the 1950s. It survived because a few communities, the Amish, the permaculture builders, the people living quietly off the grid in Oregon and Vermont and Montana, refused to let it die. They kept building, they kept teaching, they kept heating their homes for nothing while the rest of us wrote checks to utility companies every single month and thought that was normal. It was never normal. It was a choice someone else made for us, and it was a profitable choice for them. Mark Twain saw one of these stoves in 1878 and called it the best and most economical stove ever invented. He wrote that Americans could adopt it, but they would not. He said, "We stick to our own fearful inventions, of which there is not a rational one in the lot." That was 147 years ago, and he was right. We did not adopt it. We were told not to. We were sold something worse and charged for it every month for the